Once upon a time, two boys grew up playing hockey in the village of Terrace, British Columbia. One of them went on to play in the National Hockey League. The other became a comedian. Now, one flies planes and coaches youth hockey. The other is still a comedian and owns newsstands. This is their podcast, Enjoying Orange Slices with Jeff and Ian.
Sick and tired of being sick and tired. Hello, Jeff.
Hello.
It's the monthly podcast called Enjoying Orange Slices.
That's right. We do it. We were talking about doing it bi-weekly. Now we're bi-monthly. So
Yeah.
we're just checking in.
It's twice a year, the podcast that happens twice a year.
It's on the holidays. We like to do it the Canada Day, July 4th weekend, and then Christmas because everyone celebrates Christmas the same day.
And then we'll cut to November 6th every 4 years. When you vote.
You know my favorite? You said, I have to tell, Bruce Bell's a guy I played with in Cape Breton when I was in the American League, Beller. And Beller was the first round pick, real skilled guy at Edmonton drafted. Come in, I said to Beller one morning, I go, Beller, how you doing? He goes, Sharps, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I think he was like 21 at the time.
No way.
He might have been 22 or 23, but it was funny. He was a real character. So Bruce Bell. So little shout out on our monthly. I'm sick and tired of being sick and 20.
I'm sick and tired of there was just the same thing every day for 20 years.
I still laugh about that. It makes real.
My mom got me with one when I was a kid. I can't remember what Chris. I was probably about 5 or 6, and apparently I said, "I've been wanting one of these all my life."
That's awesome.
I've been waiting. I know it's been out for like 3 months, but I've been wanting one for at least 6 years now.
Well, but you wanted it all your life. You didn't know, that you had a little bit more runway in front of you.
I thought I was wrapping it up with the Fisher-Price airplane.
Yeah, that's as good as it gets. Just driving around the house all day.
That's massive right there. Hey, guess what? I'm flying a different airline on Sunday. Flying back on American.
Merkin? Never heard of
American. Yeah, apparently they've got 6 planes. They're really cheap though. They're really cheap. They don't paint them. They just put a sticker on the back.
So are you starting to try American, or you just
No.
That's the best way to get back?
It was everything. I waited till the last minute and everything. That was the best time. So I leave at 5 a.m. and get in at 9 a.m. kind of thing. So that's why I took it.
Yeah, it sucks. Like, when you do, I don't know if anybody really knows what you do, but you do have some late nights in your profession. And then,
I'm working in office.
yeah, and then getting up early.
Yeah.
It sucks. That's a tough one. But you know what? It's nice to get home. So then you're just in a bad mood the rest of the day. You're dragging your butt. But talking
It's
about
nice to be cranky at home rather than cranky someplace else.
Yeah, that works really well. It really goes over well at the house.
Oh,
Yeah.
they love it.
Everybody loves it. And the dogs are just looking at you going, hey, we really don't care. We just want a treat. And when's our walk? Let's go.
When's our walk? Love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it is a tough one. I probably will sleep for 2 hours and then go to the airport and then try to sleep on the plane the whole way. But I got to switch over in Charlotte, the new hub.
Oh, you on the East Coast then? Where are you next week?
This weekend? Jacksonville is the Saturday
you're
night
going up to
gig.
Charlotte. Okay.
I was in Huntsville last night, home of the Huntsville Havoc. Apparently they've had 15 or 16 straight sellouts this year.
I tell you what, there's some great rinks out there. Savannah, Huntsville sells out. Savannah has a great barn. I mean, think about that. How'd you like to play in the sun? Like, how great would the weather's good? I don't know.
I'm in Chattanooga tonight. Is that got a team? I don't know if Chattanooga Tennesseers or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't pay.
I think
just general information again. Just look it up.
Yeah, find out yourself. We'll just put it out there. You guys do your own work. This is Mr. Drager's grade 11 history class. Do it yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
I was going to ask though, you think what's more important? Um, a building, like having a building, right? Or a city? Like if you put a good building in a okay city, are you going to do better than an okay building in a good city?
Yeah, that's it. Wow. We need to do these monthly so we can get questions like this. You know, when you
Yes.
started asking that, this is what I thought about. I thought about Calgary. Great
Hmm.
city, way
Okay
below
building.
NHL
Below par.
standards for now. Like, I mean, it's still beautiful, you know, but the Saddle Dome was built for what, the 88 Olympics. So I think about that. I'm like, and you know, Mackenzie Weegar, who's a real character and had a hell of a year. He got on a couple of years ago. Hey, we got to, you know, if you build it, they will come. That's a great question. I think, you know, in the American League, there, when I was in the American League, there, like the cities and the buildings were, you know, the buildings were pretty much well used, most of them. And so that's a good question. I think depends where you are in your career, I guess, because like if you're in the East Coast League or you're in the American League and you've been in the league for a few years and you're an established player in that league and you know you're doing your thing and you're kind of more of a veteran presence, I would think city would be a little bit more would be higher on your radar. If you're
Mhm.
just kind of on your way through, I don't even know if you're really thinking about it. Obviously you want to be in a fun city. Building is always nice though, you know, like you look at teams in NHL now and like Edmonton got a great setup up there. Uh, you know, and then you got a great Bill State,
Jersey.
Colorado, right? Um, New Jersey's got a newer building. But yeah, that's a good question. I think that's a 50-50 one. I think it depends on where you
Well,
are in your career.
how about the owners? Do the owners want guys not to get comfortable so they don't give them as much? You know what I mean? You want them to work harder to get out of there.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? These
So
guys aren't wanting to spend a ton of money when you're just passing through. Like you're not, you know, when you start off with these teams, you know, they don't want you there. You're not a long-term investment for them. But so the owner is looking for the best building lease cost wise they can get, and the most competitive team so you know they can fill it. But it seems to me now that these buildings, especially in the minor leagues, like theme nights seem to make a really big difference. Um,
you gotta make it an event,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like it's
So
like even like with movies, the way they sell movies now, the movies that do really well, there's an event that kind of goes along with the movie. Like
yeah.
think of that Barbie movie, how much money it made because people
Mhm.
were dressing up and going there and taking photos. I honestly, if you
And
can get an
singing.
and singing, if you can get an owner in that uses the building for more than just hockey. So you like try to make the building, the surrounding the rink, right, into a couple different things and an area that people want to go to, like with some sort of, you know, just kind of cool around it.
Yeah,
I think that's the kind of owner you need to go with. But I understand why the owners don't want to put too much into stuff when the players aren't going to be there forever. But at
yeah.
the same time, if if you should associate the team to the town, not the player, right?
Right. Well, and I'll give you two examples of teams that I think about. So Savannah, Georgia, what a great place. Fantastic and fantastic building. So you get a double whammy there. But there's only one problem. They only, you know, depending on their affiliations, who they're affiliated with the NHL, who's sending them players, there's only 20 guys going to play in that organization. So, you know,
Right.
you got to go somewhere else. So sometimes it's just the way it is. You know, it's like you don't get to choose what town you're or city you're born in. Uh, that's the mom's, you know, whatever the parents wherever they live. The
Wherever mom
same
and dad's
thing.
car breaks down.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes that's what happens. But in hockey, it's the same thing. Sometimes you don't have a choice. I'll give you an example. You get drafted by, let's use Nashville as an example. Great city, great building, but a smaller building by NHL standards, but it's great, great all the way around. Well, if you get drafted by Nashville, well then you know you're going to go where they want you to go if they sign you. and so just give you another example of a team that you might not think about as a team, but it's a team that's slowly on the rise, is Anaheim. So we take Savannah and the East Coast ACHL, and you have a great city and a great building. You might sign as a free agent there, but most likely they're affiliated with someone. I think they were affiliated with Vegas up until this year. So they would have got players from Vegas, maybe another place. Anaheim has a brand new practice facility. It's a few years older now, but it's beautiful. They have a brand new rink, and they're putting a ton of money in around the Honda Center. So they're building it, right? So now you're going to have that in Anaheim. You're going to have unbelievable place to live right on the beach. Well, all those guys are Manhattan Beach or somewhere around there, right? And then they got
Newport.
Newport. You have a great practice facility, and then you got all this buzz and all this that's being built in around the arena you play in to attract people. So some other teams have done the exact same thing, but Anaheim looks like they're the next one, and consequently, their young guys are on the rise along with everything else there. So it's a great city and a great practice facility and a great building. And I think the pros, like the guys that are in the NHL, are probably looking at facilities as well. They're like, okay, I like the team.
How do they take care of us?
Yeah, how do they take
I
care of
can't
us?
remember who they were talking about. I can't remember who it was. Somebody got traded and they went from one team to another team. And then they're like, "Hey, we need a chef." And they're like, "No, you don't get your own chef." And then he paid for a chef to come in, and then the next year they had a chef. I can't remember who they were talking about. But you got to be. I think some of these teams, you got to be ahead of the curve and have something that you can offer the players. Like money can only get to so far, right? Paying the players because there's a cap,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
what else is around? Of course, LA and Anaheim have the beach, and so does Florida. But what else can Vancouver have around? What else can Toronto? Toronto, you get tons of press. If you're ever worried about not getting press, you have press there. So,
Well, and you bring it up, and I heard, I mean, third party, so believe it if you see it. But I'd heard that you talk about the chef, this, and people are like, come on. But this stuff now all plays into it because the superstars and the top end guys are making a lot of money, way more money than they ever made. Does that mean they're spending more? I don't know, probably. But so what comes with it? What else do you have to offer? What's your practice facility like? What's the building you play in like? And what do you have a chef? Where do you stay on the road?
mhm.
What's the interaction with the owner? Like I'll give you an example in with Bill Foley in Vegas. I think once every week or 2 weeks, they have a company come out and wash the cars for the guys. And players love it. They get out there, they detail the cars for them. I don't know how often it is, but that's something that, you know, Mr. Foley decided that was important and a part of today's helping
We
today's
need
player.
clean cars. We can't
Yeah,
have these
I
people
know
having filthy
it never
cars.
rains, although it's supposed to rain in Vegas tomorrow. But it's just little things like that. And so, like you were talking about the chef, and you're like, "Come on!" But
Hmm.
it's changed so much. And I'll never forget the time I had a conversation with an old friend that played, and they went out to the Rockies. I think they went into Aspen or I don't know, some airport. And I was thinking, just trying to get in my head. I'm like, okay, go through Denver, and then you're going to take a small airplane into Aspen. I'm like, oh, that doesn't really seem like the way they roll. He goes, no, no, Sharps. We took a private plane.
No way.
So yeah, it's like, all right, and there we have the divide, right? But that
Right.
is the difference, and that was several years ago now. So when you think it's every detail. The favorite hotel by some of I've heard on many or some of the NHL teams is the Ritz Carlton.
Mhm.
That's the hotel they usually look to stay in, that kind of hotel. So you're like, wow. I mean, we thought we were doing pretty good when we were in a Marriott Marquis. Now you're going another direction there. So my favorite hotel ever though in the show when I was there was the Drake in Chicago. I don't know if the team still stay there. Man, what a cool spot that was. So
That's
That's
I don't
it.
know if I like the public. The public in Chicago is really good. I don't know if you stayed there. It's pretty good.
Well, stay at the Hilton now, so
Stay at the Hilton, the Hilton, the Hilton.
On Michigan, but um, yeah, so it's kind of
Where's
an
that? On
interesting
Michigan?
conversation.
That's a good one. The last time me and John were there, we stayed right across from Wrigley Field.
But that would have been fun.
It was a really nice hotel. It was cool.
Should
So,
we?
anyways.
All right. So,
So speaking more of hockey, last week we did because we don't do this weekly. There were trades happened without us. The what do they call it? The trade deadline happened on Friday at noon Eastern time, right? It was noon Eastern or 3 o'clock Eastern
right.
time, noon Pacific, and it's supposed to be the biggest day of the year for trades. What did you think? What did you think of it all?
I was really, I mean, it really got going. It lived up to it this year. A lot of big names moving, which was really impressive. Um, and
You want to
yeah,
go
I
winners
mean,
losers?
um, it's tough to say. Like, obviously, you would say Dallas was a huge winner getting Rantanen. Florida was a huge winner getting Marchand. Toronto came
Argent.
in at the last minute, got Carlo and Lawton, a couple pieces they thought they needed. And then I'll look and I'll say, okay, so those are big splashes. Um, and then you got some other deals where people got moved. And I'll give you an example with the Knights. Riley Smith's back. So maybe not a headline, but this guy was a huge part of what was going on in Vegas from day one. He's back. So you look and you go, well, those other guys make a huge splash, but this is a guy that maybe fits in a little quicker than say somewhere else. And I mean, Rantanen looks really good after his first couple games in Dallas, but
He looks refreshed.
yeah, he does. And talking about that whole scenario and how wild it is now. The first huge name, I mean, there were some big trades before, but the first huge name to go in a trade years and years ago was Gretzky, right? When he went from Edmonton
Was
to
that
LA.
at the trade deadline?
No, that was in the summer. It was in the
That was
summer.
in the
So I
summer.
guess, but what I'm getting at is, now, Rantanen's not at the level of Gretzky, but Rantanen is a superb player in the league. And
I think some pearls were clutched when he got traded to North Carolina. I think that definitely was like, ooh, people were
yeah,
like,
well, and the thing is you talk about it and to go back about what we talked about earlier about a chef or some what you might think is kind of coloring around the edges kind of stuff. Um, Supposedly, Colorado offered him 11.75 per year. Goes to Carolina, um, just wasn't really a fit for one reason or another. There's a lot going on to it. He ends up in Dallas for 12 a year. Okay, so two hundred fifty thousand
and
dollars a
no
year
taxes.
and no taxes. So $250,000 a year plus no state tax, plus a really good team. Okay, so if you're Colorado, do you foresee him coming back? Never mind into your own conference, into your own division, and there's a really high likelihood that those two are going to play each other in the first round because Winnipeg just keeps on keeping on. So now you trade this guy over 250 grand a year over 8 years, which, hey, that's no small amount of money. And now he ends up back in your own division. Pretty interesting, how a superstar didn't get traded once, he got traded twice. And then you have the other superstar, Marchand, who was sitting there and they were right up to 1959 in the third period trying to figure out an extension. And he said, hey, I'm not coming back for that. And so they moved him to Florida, which would be really interesting to see how he fits in down there and if he signs an extension with them. Wouldn't surprise me one
It
bit.
could.
Wouldn't surprise me one bit.
We've had guys get traded and just not fit in, right? We've had the wheel kind of unbalanced after the deadline before, and I'm curious to see with Marchand how, because he's a big personality. So how does he fit in that dressing room with another big personality called Chuck, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, it'll be interesting to see again. And I'll give you an example of a team. because I obviously follow them and do some stuff with them, is Vegas. Vegas
What?
basically set up this year's trade deadline by trading for Hannafin and Hurdle at last year's deadline. So now you're just looking at, a piece that you think will give you the depth that you need to take on these heavyweight teams you're going to see. And I mean, so Hurdle's healthy and on fire. Hannafin has come out of the Four Nations like a house on fire. So not all the deals that you see right at the deadline are always, sometimes it takes a while. So the Brad Marchand deal in Florida, I think will pay dividends immediately, but it also could be a deal where you look at over time, and if they resign him for a year or two, that keeps Florida in that relevant window. And I got to tip my hat to Florida, how they've done it this year. It's been very
Tampa,
impressive. Yeah. And
Tampa
then,
and Florida, Tampa and Florida
yeah,
are no longer just teams in the NHL. They are heavyweights in the NHL.
yeah. And if you go a little before the deadline, I'll give you an example of a team that they weren't sure. Like we talked about Calgary earlier. They got Farabee and I was it Frost. They got not Farabee. They've traded for two guys from Philly that have come in and done a nice job for them.
Two
And
Fs. It was two Fs, and I can't remember who it was,
I
but
think it was fair. It's Farabee and is it Frost? I don't know if it's
it might
Frost.
be Frost. It might be
I
Frost.
might be wrong on that, but anyways, the two guys have come in, and so that was a little bit ahead of the deadline, but still, one of the things too is I like, and Vancouver, well, with Rutherford was always really big on this, is making his splash early in the season so you could get these guys in and learning your system. And like Riley Smith said it the other day, he goes, when I come in, like he got in at midnight. They had a pregame skate and they played the next night against or that night again. I've whoever it was, maybe it was Pittsburgh, and he goes, I didn't have to ask anybody what the drills were. I knew what the drills were. He knows
Right.
the room. He knows a bunch of the guys, right? So there's, you ask yourself, why it takes players a while to get going, and he knows the Western Conference. That's the benefit.
Anybody that's had a new job should understand,
Yeah.
right? Like it's you don't just fit in day one. You may assimilate a little bit, but it takes a while to get everything going, you know? So
Yeah.
I
And
have a
it,
new
and it,
job every night. So
you do
I'm
you, but you're in a your job is what you do is the same, but where you do it is different every night. So, and some rooms are different than other rooms. Yeah.
It takes a while for you to like, and it's not just on the ice, it's being off the ice. It's like these guys like a lot of guys like to tap things and have certain things that they like to do before a game, superstitions. So now
Mhm.
you got to figure out, do I drive there? How do I drive there? Do I drive? Am I staying in a hotel? Is my family around? Like all these different things. I don't know. I think everybody just like looks at it like just on the ice. Well, they should just fit in right away. Come on now. Come on,
It's
you
funny.
got
Uh,
lots of money. You should come on now.
I did like just driving to the rink. Do you drive with someone? Do you like to drive with yourself? The person you drive with, do they stop for a coffee? And I'll give you an example. I did the New Jersey Vegas game, I don't know, a week or so ago, and it was a 5 o'clock game. I was like, what time did I go down? Like I'm like 5 o'clock, so I'm in my mind because for a seven game, I like to get. You can never beat Mallard. You can never beat Mallard to the rink ever. And Ashley's usually really early too. But I left the house I think around one for a
That's
five
so
o'clock
funny.
game. We went on like, and I was like, what am I doing? So I got down there about 1:30. I'm like, and
Drove
and
and then turned around, drove home, came back again at 2.
I went into the press room, because I like to get my water and maybe a cookie. And they didn't even have the stuff out yet. The chairs were all still
That's
up on the tables.
terrible.
I'm like, what an idiot. So you know what? Now you put yourself, and I know, like I live in Vegas. I know how to get down there. I know how the deal goes. Now you put yourself in a new city
Yeah,
and then everything else, and you're all revved up and you want to do a good job now that you're in a different conference or different time zone. And I know people, they make a lot of money, I get it, but there's human factors involved with everything. And I was laughing. I was down there at 1:30. Well, the good news is Mallard was down there, so we were chatting, and then we got a chance to see Ryan McGill before the game, which was awesome. Gilly's a great guy. But I mean, I was down at least an hour before I needed to be. And so you could see how a guy's trying to fit into a new team.
Just takes a
Um,
little time.
it takes some time and it's not
Yeah,
always seamless.
two or three of those 5 o'clock games. You know your schedule. Yeah, yeah. It's human nature. It takes a little while to get things going, but it's also human nature to just go, oh, eh, like people
Yeah.
just like, So yeah, yeah, yeah. I do think it's interesting what Boston's doing. Boston is just cleaning house, right? Like in a bizarre way. I guess Pasternak's the man now. I'm guessing that's what they're trying to say.
Yeah, and Boston is like I think 2 points out, or they're right there. And there's been a couple times like I think there's 5 teams within a couple points, like three maximum, maybe 4 points in the East, and 3 teams in the West. But I think coming out of Four Nations was really interesting to watch because some teams have scuffled and some teams have done really well. And then the trade deadline came, and I don't care who you are, how long you've been in the game, no trade, whatever, all the protection in the world, maybe you don't care as much, but there's still some nervous energy for everybody, and definitely for someone who's been hearing their name in the rumor mill all year. And I really think like Pittsburgh played Vegas that night. They just weren't. I didn't even know how they had enough guys to fill a lineup out because they'd moved some guys out. Other teams, you could see it affected them. So I think you have a double whammy coming out of the Four Nations. You have, hey, we've been on the beach for 2 weeks. Now you've got the extreme stress level of, hey, the trade deadline. And
Hmm.
I've like there's some deals in the NFL and there's some deals and seems like more in the NBA and some in baseball, but there isn't a day in sports, I don't think, like the NHL trade deadline. It's like, yeehaw, here we
Wow, it's pretty
go.
crazy.
And you
Yeah.
know what? It's kind of like this is the way we do things. So you're part of this team till March, what was it, 6th or whatever the date was? And,
Hmm.
and then they just making moves. And I think what really helps some guys is Rantanen, for example. We used him a few times, but not only is the guy superstar, but he's back in the Western Conference in the Central Division, which he knows like the back of his hand. He's been there for 9 years. Marchand stays in the Eastern Conference, so he knows that out there. But some of the guys that are moving around a little bit, LA picked up Kuzmenko. Okay, Kuzmenko hasn't really had the kind of year maybe, since he got traded from Vancouver, Calgary, Philly, but he knows the Western Conference and the Pacific Division really well. So you maybe Riley Smith. You look at these guys that have some time in these conferences and then specifically these divisions. You maybe those are the guys you're going to look to get off and running right away.
Cousins
Hmm.
for Norris, right? Was it Cousins for
Yeah,
Norris?
yeah.
And that stayed in the East. Ottawa really making a break for it, even though I was just like, people were like, "Oh, Norris and Tuchuk are really good friends. It's going to cause a riff and stuff like that." Yeah, yeah, friendships. Yeah, you kind of like it rips the Band-Aid off. But who knows? What if Norris changes that whole culture in Buffalo and they finally start to turn it
Yeah.
around? You don't get to play with your friend anymore, but you get to change the whole direction of a team. And if he can take that and maybe could run with that, I think that's when you see even a shitty situation turn into a great situation.
Well, we've been waiting for a long time. So Columbus,
They
everyone's
beat
pulling for
Edmonton.
Columbus. Yeah, and then now Buffalo. Buffalo beats Edmonton the other night. Maybe they find a way to glue it together and get some kind of momentum going towards the end of the season.
And
Probably
then
most
next year.
teams have 17, 18 games left. You know what I mean? So can you go
You want to be
10
the
and
dream. You
7?
want to be. You want to be the dream buster for everybody, right?
Yeah,
Is what you want to
can
do.
you go 10 and 7, right? I
Mhm.
mean, not 500, a few games above 500. And we saw what a turnaround Columbus has had. There's a lot going on,
Struggled yesterday.
obviously, but they look really good. So right now in the East, you have Ottawa and Columbus holding on your wild cards. It's crazy good for the league. It's crazy good for those communities, right? Ottawa needs a
Mhm.
win. Columbus needs a win. But I looked at the goals for differential, and the one team that's been just scuffling all year, but has the best goals differential that I could see that has a chance to make it in the East is the Rangers. So we will see how it's going to finish, but it looks like that's going to go down to the last night or two of the season, which is exactly what the NHL wants. And out west, it looks
Absolutely.
similar, but just fewer teams. And look out for St. Louis out west. I think they're 7-1-2 in their last 10 or something. So look out
Life
for
is
them.
much better, and I'll just put it on hockey and in life. Life is much better when it's not the haves and the have-nots. It's everybody just really being close, and there's a couple, the breakaway, but it's just more exciting, right? If we just like there's just bottom of the heap and top of the heap, it's just boring for the league and doesn't sell as well as when everybody's good.
Yeah. And, there's not a lot of teams out there that, are just you're like, oh, what's going on? I will say this about Ottawa. You touched on it. They got Zetterlund from San Jose, which is a
Hmm.
player I really liked. Um, and I
Somebody described him as a pack of cigarettes. Like he's built like a
oh,
pack of
like oh,
cigarettes.
that was was that Biz built like a cigarette machine? He
Yeah,
dropped that on and everyone's like, yeah, because there's so many of those still around.
that's so
Hey,
funny.
you know what's funny is Biz reminds me a little bit. I saw some clips this week. The golf is in the Players Championship in Ponte Vedra, Florida, and you know who's out there is Gronkowski, and Biz and
Uh-huh.
Gronk kind of
They're
remind me a little bit
very
of
much
each other.
alike.
I love, and you know what? Gronk's out there having a drink, shaking everyone's hand, telling him great shot. He was standing on the 17th green. Biz is like that too. Like he's so much energy and he says stuff that just is hilarious. Like built like a cigarette machine. And you and I can totally envision what that looks like. But
That's
people
so yeah.
25 years old are like going, what is he talking about? So, anyways,
I'm
Biz
gonna start
doesn't need
calling
to be.
Gronk. I'm
Yeah,
gonna start calling Gronk the Bissonette of the NFL instead of the other way around.
yeah,
Well, if it isn't the Bissonette of the NFL, oh,
yeah.
that's hysterical.
It's
That's
it's
they're
it's
very
funny.
close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I had a chuckle. I just was thinking like Biz was on the trade deadline on Sportsnet. I was up north, spending some time with my aunt and uncle, and I was watching it because we had lots of time, and I was
Lots of
howling.
time.
And you know what, Biz, and then I just happened to see some clips today of Gronk at the Players Championship caddying for Zalatoris, and then he's getting lessons from Spieth, and he's everywhere. And these guys, their personalities are bigger than life, right? And they
Yeah.
just draw people in. It's pretty funny. So Biz and Gronk kind of Biz is the Gronk of the NHL, and Gronk's the Biz of the NFL, right?
I love it. Well, this
Yeah,
is a quick one. I know you got to
yeah.
get going. I know you got to get going. I've got to drive to Chattanooga, Tennessee from,
Chattanooga.
yeah, I got to drive there from Huntsville and then off to Birmingham, Alabama after that, where tickets are in the tank. Worst ticket sales in years. I'm like, huh, all right. Apparently Birmingham is not my community.
Hey, I have a question. You're out there with the fabulous John Wynn, right?
Shaj Win is yeah, he missed last night, but he's gonna be here tonight.
Are
Yeah.
did you rent a Mustang for him?
Oh no, got a RAV4. Just us two floating around. A couple freedom fighters floating around the South trying to get people to vote.
Guys out there. You should, too bad you hadn't picked up a Mustang for him.
I should have
John
got
and
him an
his
electric
Mustang.
Mustang.
So,
He's fun. We were in San Diego last week, and after the show, I'm like, "Are you going home right now?" He goes, "No, I got to charge." He hadn't charged, so he had to sit around for an hour and a half and charge his car. Oh, it made me laugh. I'm like, "Oh, he had so much time today, but you didn't do that." Okay, all right.
yeah. No, that's well, he's got to come for a little further, right, to get to San Diego because he's coming
Yeah,
from north of LAX and you're south of
yeah.
LAX.
He's north of
So,
LA. Yeah, yeah, he's
hey,
north.
are
Yeah.
you I thought when were you in Nashville or did you have to skip that
Oh,
weekend? Have you been
no,
there?
I went
Oh, that's right.
Nashville.
The roof
Yeah.
almost came off the building. That's right, because of the weather.
Yeah.
Hey, big news is after this week, where you're gonna tank it out in the south, you're going up to the Pacific Northwest next week, I hear.
Yeah, it is next week. I'm going to Eugene and Portland. I'm going to
Yeah,
see Cam Miller. It's
yeah.
Mrs. Miller's birthday, I think.
Yeah, and of course he's like, I'm gonna text Lord Bagg. I said, well, what do you text him for? If you text him, say hi, you might get an answer. If you text him for tickets, it'll be radio silence.
That's so funny. He's like, "Hey, can we get a couple tickets?" I'm like, "Sure, you can. No worries." It's been about a year since I've heard about it from him, so he's one of those he's one
Yeah,
of those
he's
goofs.
yeah, yeah. Well, you can tell him off when you
Not
get
a
on
hello,
stage.
not a hello. How you doing? Yeah, he's fantastic. They can come out anytime they want. They know that. Good hockey people, good
Yeah.
airline people, good laughers.
Oh yeah, they got it all. They're a power couple, those two. Well, Kim's most of the power of the couple, but that's
Most of the
normally how it
power.
works, right? You got
That new joke that I do about Carrie Ann being a bully is definitely Kim.
oh, that new one about Carrie. That's one of the best ones you got because it's so relevant right now. What is going
Yeah.
on? What you got anybody
Uh,
shout out this week?
yeah, it's Gary Bagg's birthday today. My pop's birthday today. 86, I think he is today. So Gary Bagg he's just plugging along, doing good. The old man's doing really good. So hey, happy birthday, Dad. I know you're gonna have a good day. What do you want for your birthday? I'd like a piece of pie. That's what he wanted for his birthday. So Jocelyn made him a pie. He's getting some pie and he's happy. He's happy as a clam. So
This is my favorite. One of my favorite stories about your dad is back in the day when he used to go with all his buddies to the A&W and Terrace. Give a quick shout out with nice, good little spot to go when we're home. And he sees me. I'm coming in. I got a coffee. He goes, "Hey Jeff, how are you?" I said, "I'm good, Gary. How are you?" He says, "Come on over here." I said, and there's people sitting like the little four, like you would get at McDonald's, like four, a table with two seats and two seats beside, and there's four people beside him. And he looks over and he's like, "Come on over." He says, "These goddamn guys will move." He goes, "You guys need to move." And sure enough, they're like, "Well, I guess Gary told us to move. We better move." So they
Gary gave us
moved.
the heave ho.
I
That's
never
so
laughed,
funny.
so I loved it. I was like, "Yep." He's like, "These goddamn guys, they can move,"
That,
and so
that's my
they
dad.
moved. That's him. You know what? I'm going to keep it in the family. Shout out to my aunt and uncle, my aunt Bev, who's up in the Okanagan, British Columbia. God's country, beautiful place. Got to spend some time with family and her and my uncle. She was not well last week, but she's coming around from the
Nice.
prairies of Canada originally, and I don't know how they do it. They're way tougher than we are, or than I am. But she's
Way.
fighting through. So shout out to my aunt Bev and my uncle Jim up there. So, who another quick story would drive from Penticton when I played junior hockey in Kelowna and driving snowstorms in their little Toyota Corolla station wagon to come see me. The roads would almost be closed, but they'd come over and watch games. So
I love
uh,
it.
you know what? That's what family's all about, right? So
Right. That
if
is
you
what
happen to be
family.
fighting with one of your family members right now, you might want to just hug it up, bring it in,
If you're
get
fighting
along.
with a family member, buy him a Corolla and send him into a snowstorm.
Yeah. So that was a little shout out to her. But other than that, we will. You do the best you can down there in the south. Hopefully, some people buy some tickets.
Says by some, just a couple freedom fighters getting people to vote. Loved all.
Loved all.